We're here in appropriations to finish up the last bit of work of our committee. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how we're going to proceed, but I'd like to start first with introductions. And since Representative Cardone is joining us remotely, I thought I would start with her. Good morning.
Hello, I'm Barbara Cardone. I represent House District 127, part of Bangor.
Glad you could make it. Representative Ducharme.
Good morning. I'm Jack Ducharme. I represent House District 111, which is Madison, Norridgewock, and Solon.
Representative Fay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jessica Fay. I represent House District 66, which is parts of the towns of Casco, Poland, and Raymond.
Representative Corey.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Corey. I represent House District 25, which is part of Wyndham.
Representative Millett.
Morning, everyone. Sowen Millett, House District 71, towns of Norway, Sweden, Waterford, and West Paris.
Representative Hymanson.
Good morning, Patty Hymanson. I represent District 4 in the House, parts of York, Wells, Sanford, and all of Ogunquit.
Representative Cloutier.
Really going to miss Senator Davis. Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone, and happy Earth Day. I am Representative Kristen Cloutier, and I represent House District 60, which is part of my hometown of Lewiston.
Representative Arata.
Good morning. My name is Amy Arata, and I represent House District 65, which includes New Gloucester and part of Poland.
Representative Martin.
John Martin, House District 151, soon to be District 1, but runs from Allagash down 161 to Fort Kent and down Route 11 to Oxbow.
Senator Davis.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Davis, and I have the privilege of representing Senate District 4, which is all of Piscataquis County and parts of Somerset and Penobscot.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Bailey. I proudly serve the residents of Senate District 31, which is Saco, Old Orchard Beach, Hollis, Leamington, and part of Buxton.
And my co-chair, Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Teresa Peirce. I represent House District 44, which is the majority of Falmouth, and I serve as the House Chair of Appropriations and Financial Affairs.
And my name is Kathy Breen. I represent 6.5 communities in Cumberland County. I serve as Senate Chair of Appropriations. So the first thing we're going to do today is dispense with some of the bills that were referred to our committee and will not be leaving our committee. So there are a bunch of bond bills and some other committees related to appropriations, other bills rather. And because there are about 20 bills, we're going to do it in one motion, but we're going to read the LD numbers and the titles. So I would ask my co-chair to go ahead and read the titles, the LD number and the title, and then we'll have a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 21, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to provide a new dormitory facility at the Maine School of Science and Mathematics. LD 42, an act making certain supplemental appropriations and allocations and changing certain provisions of the law necessary to the proper operation of state government. LD 49, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to invest in infrastructure to address sea level rise. LD 33, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to invest in fire stations.
Sorry.
Oh, 133.
Thank you.
My bad. LD 133, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to invest in fire stations. LD 150, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to fund hazardous substance site cleanups. LD 181, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to complete the renovation of a wharf and bulkhead in Portland for marine research. LD 218, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to accelerate weatherization efforts in the state. LD 240, an act making certain appropriations and allocations and changing certain provisions of law necessary to the proper operation of state government. LD 298, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to fund capital improvements and equipment to career and technical education centers and regions to prepare students to join Maine's workforce. LD 304, An act to make certain supplemental appropriations and allocations and changing certain provisions of the law necessary to the proper operation of state government. LD 327, an act to return surplus money to Maine taxpayers. LD 371, an act to make adjustments to general fund appropriations related to the supplemental budget. LD 373, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to invest in Maine's railroad infrastructure. LD 384, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to fund the transition from fossil fuel-based to an electrical energy economy. LD 466, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to support a climate center at the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. LD 481, an act to propose a general fund bond issue to train workers in high demand sectors and support the state's 10-year economic plan goal of increasing wages by 10%. LD 517, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to promote the construction of energy efficient, affordable homes and the adaptive reuse, repair, and weatherization of existing homes for low-income seniors. LD 781, an act to strengthen Maine's economy. LD 987, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue for the Portland Harbor Commercial Revitalization Projects, confined aquatic disposal cell and dredging projects. LD 1084, an act to authorize a general fund bond to create energy efficient and affordable homes for Maine people. LD 1086, an act to authorize a general fund bond to upgrade customs facilities at the Portland International Jetport and the Bangor International Airport to promote international tourism and commerce. LD 1095, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to purchase 4 nursing simulators for the use of the University of Maine system and the Maine Community College system. LD 1235, an act to authorize general fund bond issue to connect Maine with a world-class internet infrastructure. LD 1475, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue for targeted food processing infrastructure. LD 1597, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to strengthen Maine's healthcare workforce. LD 1637, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to provide funds for Maine to meet the state's carbon reduction goals by supporting the use of biofuels. LD 1647, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to provide funds for the infrastructure projects across the state and to direct the Department of Environmental Protection to establish a state infrastructure adaptation fund and pre-development assistance program. LD 1698, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue to create a public-private partnership to create biomass energy facilities in Aroostook County and to connect Aroostook County to ISO New England.
So I need a motion of ought not to pass.
I make a motion of ought not to pass.
Second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Thank you. We're now going to proceed to the part of the meeting where we review the bills that are on the appropriations table. And we will be funding some of them. And we will go in numerical order according to the list of Special Appropriations Table 130th Legislature, Second Regular Section Table Report dated April 22nd, 2022, prepared by OFPR. And before I begin, I want to thank everybody in OFPR who's been working incredibly hard over the last couple of weeks to finish our budget, as well as work with this committee and the 4 caucus leaders and folks who have been scrambling at the end of the session, as we always do, to amend bills or find bills to fund off the tables. And then after today, after we work on these today, OFPR and the revisor's office will be spending time over the weekend getting ready to for action in the Senate on Monday. So thank you all for your hard work. We have Maureen Dawson, Mark Sear, Luke Lazur here from OFPR, and Judith Hannum, our wonderful clerk. So thank you. And I think we're going to start. We'll be moving. Each caucus has its own, has a set of bills that we'll be talking about as we go down the list in numerical order. And we're going to share the load. We generally hear a lot from this committee from the two chairs, but today we're going to hear from everybody. It's going to be great. So I think the first bill is, I believe, Senator Davis's. Yes, Senator Davis.
Yes, I would move that in as amended. LD 23, excuse me, LD 23.
And Maureen, do LD 23, do we need anything more than that? Or like what the amendment does or what?
Yes, a brief, just a brief description of what that does.
Can you give a brief description, Senator Davis, of what the amendment does? Can you turn your mic on? Thanks.
I believe the amendment is in regards to the amount of money, and it's, excuse me. Okay, this amendment changes the effective date from the tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2022 to tax years beginning on January 1st, 2023. You wrote.
All right. All set? Okay. So it's been moved ought to pass as amended. Is there a second?
I would second.
Representative Millet seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. I believe the next one is on the, is LD 85. And Representative Hymanson is going to discuss it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is to fund donor breast milk as amended, which moves out the date a year. This will give main care benefits to pasteurized donor breast milk consistent with current coverage of donor breast milk under the federal TRICARE program.
And are you amending it?
I'm amending it to move the date out a year.
Okay. So there's a motion ought to pass as amended.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0.
Madam Chair, I believe the next LD in the list is LD 174, an act to implement the recommendations of ending hunger by 2030 advisory group. I move that ought to pass.
As is.
No changes.
Okay. Is there moved ought to pass? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Representative Hymanson, you have a live mic, FYI. 177 will be next. Representative Cloutier?
Correct.
All right, Representative Cloutier.
It works. So I would like to move in as amended LD 177, which is an act to improve labor laws for workers in Maine. It provides ongoing funding to apprenticeship programs and training. And we are amending the fiscal note to $50,000 per year for each of the two programs.
Is there a second?
I'll second that. And the amount, Representative Cloutier?
$50,000 per year
Thank you.
for each of the two programs, so 100,000 total.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. I think the next one is LD 201 that I think were you going to discuss that or me? Okay, so this is LD 201, an act to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote weatherization in the building sector by extending the sunset date for the historic property rehabilitation tax credit. So this credit was set to expire in 2025, and we're not going to let it expire. And that's, so it's just, I'll move it to pass. Second by Representative Martin. Any questions? All those in favor? 13-0. All right, LD 203, Senator Davis, is that you? Mm-hmm.
I don't,
My apologies.
I did not have that on my list.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry about that. Great. Are we, so I have one, LD 231. Do you have anything in between there? Okay, Senator Bailey?
Thank you. LD 231 is an act to establish semi-open primaries, and I would move that ought to pass as amended. The amendment is just changing the funding source. And I would just like to say I've been a proponent and a supporter of semi-open primaries for quite some time. And I just believe that, you know, we have a better democracy, the more folks can participate. So ought to pass as amended.
All right, and that's a one-time cost.
That's a one-time cost.
Any discussion? Oh, moved and seconded? Sorry, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Representative
Can I
Purse.
have a point of clarification on that? So the cost is in a later year and your one-time funding source is what year?
22, 23.
Okay, thank you. So you would actually in 22, 23 be saving $200,932, and then the cost is in the.
Correct. Thank you,
Thank you.
Maureen.
Representative Arado?
Thank you. Could you explain the difference between semi-open and open primaries?
I don't know that I can, because I'm not sure what an open primary is. I mean, what this allows is that someone who is unenrolled can vote in the primary, but they do have to choose either a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot. So that's semi-open. I guess an open, I don't know. I don't know what that is. The member who serves on VLA may have an answer.
Representative Corey?
I think that the other piece, I think that Representative Senator Bailey explained it really well, but I think that the other piece is that they can't sort of re-enroll, I think within or not sort of unenroll just before. I think that they have to have unenrolled. I don't know if it's like 2 months before what it is, but so it kind of keeps people from, you know, I guess going and gaming somebody else's primary. So
Does that answer your question? Sure. So it's been moved and as amended and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor? 12 opposed, 1. Yes.
You might have skipped over a bill on the House Republican 219.
All right, go ahead, Representative Millet.
Thanks, Madam Chair. House Republicans would like to support LD 219, an act to improve the agricultural marketing loan fund and agricultural development grant. It's department bill sponsored by Representative Pluker. We'd like to move it in as amended, striking the FY23 appropriation of $550,000 and inserting $467,000 $1,240. Our intent is to make that a one-time appropriation in FY '23.
May I get a point of clarification on that? I believe that one is a transfer and an allocation.
Yes.
So are you changing the transfer and the allocation? Thank you.
That is part of the amendment. It is a transfer and to that amount.
The amount was $467,240.
Correct.
It's been moved as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on these two pages between LD 201 and LD 241 before we move on? Okay, turn the page. Anybody have anything on page 6?
Yeah.
Okay, Senator Davis.
Yes, in reference to LD 245, an act regarding rural water districts. I'd move it in.
With no amendment, just as is.
No, I have an amendment. I'm
Okay,
sorry, I'm
what is,
sorry.
go
As
ahead and
amended.
describe the amendment.
The amendment removes the one-time transfer from the unappropriated surplus of the general fund to the Department of Health and Human Services of $200,000 in the fiscal year 21-22, removes the associated allocation and eliminates provisions regarding the small consumer-owned water utility infrastructure fund.
All right.
Basically, it takes the money out of it.
So it creates the fund, doesn't put any money in it.
That's correct. It
All
leaves the
right.
other language in it.
Yep, okay, so there's a motion as amended. Is there a second? Representative Fay, seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anybody else have anything on page 6? Not seeing anything. How about page 7? Any of those? Nope, turn the page. Anything on page 8? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 305, an act to include forest rangers and fire protection. No, I move it in, no amendment.
Okay, moved it in with no change. Is there a second? Second by Representative Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 8? No, okay, we're gonna move on now to page 9, LD 372. This basically takes this bill and strikes the whole bill, and we're amending it to set up a hospital loan program for distressed hospitals. And we're gonna be using $12 million out of the Medicaid Stabilization Fund. And the Finance Authority of Maine will be administering the loan. It's called the Hospital System Loans Fund. And the transfer will happen by June 30th, 2022. So that is, I'm moving that ought to pass as amended. Second by Representative Ducharme. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Senator Davis.
I believe I had LD 290 and I think we skipped it. I had it circled like you suggested. I think I didn't notice it.
LD 290, go
Yes.
ahead, Senator Davis.
LD 290, an act to stabilize property taxes for individuals 65 years of age or older who own a homestead for at least 10 years. I would move it in as amended. And I'll read the amendment. The
Yep.
amendment removes from the general fund appropriation of $70,824 from fiscal 2021-22. It also moves $1,955,000 from of the general fund appropriation fiscal 22-23 to fiscal 23-24 as amended. the bill still includes a general fund appropriation of $315,242 in fiscal 22-23 to the Bureau of Revenue Services within the Department of Administrative and Financial Services.
Thank you. So that's been moved. Is there a second? Second by Representative Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0.
I was paying attention, Madam Chair. I just,
No worries. Hey, listen, we're doing this in the light of day. This is just.
that's right.
amazing.
Hey, it's great. It's
Like,
great.
like with a list in numerical order. This is incredible. This never happens. All right, so we'll move on to page 8. We did LD 305. Anything else on page 8 before we move on? Oh, and page 9 we did. Anything else on page 9? Okay, we'll move on to page 10. Anyone have anything on page 10? Representative Purse. Turn your mic on.
I would like to move in as amended LD 449, an act to strengthen the ability of public employees and teachers unions to negotiate. This is a change of the date to 2023 and all the accompanying general fund that goes with it, which is $52,200. Ought to pass as amended.
Second.
Moved ought to pass as amended and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 11, and opposed? 2. Anything else on page 10? Okay, moving on to page 11. Anything on page 11? Not seeing any. We'll move on to page 12. Senator Bailey, we were going to do something with LD 484. I just want to check, is anyone doing anything with LD 480? No, okay, Senator Bailey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So LD 484, an act relating to the distribution of state revenue from the real estate transfer tax. I'm moving on to pass as amended. The amendment is, the bill had 2 parts. One was about the distribution of the transfer tax. We're striking that out, but the other piece was beginning July 1st, 2023, the Maine State Housing Authority shall use 25% of funds transferred to the Housing Opportunities for Maine Fund under this subparagraph to support the creation of new housing units through new construction or adaptive reuse that are affordable to low-income households. So we're keeping that 25% has to be used for new units, and the effect of that is that the fiscal note is now 0.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Representative Millet?
Just a question, if I might, to Senator Bailey. Do you have any estimate of how much that 25% would amount to starting in the next biennium?
I do not.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. The next one is one I'm going to do, and Maureen and Mark, you actually don't have an amendment on this, but it's fairly straightforward. LD 485 is an act to continue funding for home delivered meals for homebound seniors and to address growing demand. This is basically the Meals on Wheels program. And I'm going to amend it to use $250,000 starting in this fiscal year. Representative Bailey, Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's also an amendment to add language to allow the providers to reimburse their volunteers at a higher rate for mileage. That's some notwithstanding language. So that's part of the amendment as well.
Great, thank you. So it's been moved as amended. Second? Representative Fay seconds. Any further discussion? Yes, Representative Hymanson.
Is this one time or is this ongoing?
It's
funding?
ongoing.
Thank you. That's very important.
Yes.
Yes.
It's
I
ongoing.
wanted to mention that.
Ongoing, yep, general fund money. Any further discussion? Mark, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure the motion was to move it down to, so we're going to be left with 250,000, or are we reducing it by 250,000? It was to move it down to 250,000, right? Is that what we're?
We are appropriating 250,000.
In the end, thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Moving on to page 13. Are there any bills here? Anyone would like to, Representative Cloutier?
So I would like to move in as amended LD 506, an act to reduce the tax burden on low-income electricity customers. And the amendment to this is just moving the effective date out to January 1st of 2023.
Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Martin. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Moving on to page 14. Anyone have anything on page 14? I have one, but is there any others? Okay, I'm going to amend, I'm going to move ought to pass as amended on LD 533, an act to expand the statewide voluntary early childhood consultation program. This amendment reduces the general fund appropriation to DHHS from $2,915,479 to $1,457,740,000 in fiscal year 2023, and changes the effective date to January 1, 2023. It also includes a transfer of $1,457,740 in fiscal year 2023 from the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund within the Maine Municipal Bond Bank to the unappropriated surplus of the general fund to offset the remaining costs to the general fund. So I'll move as with that amendment. Second by Representative Martin. Any questions? Discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything, I do have LD 542 is Senator Bailey is going to discuss that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would move ought to pass as amended. The amendment essentially strikes the language of the bill and is establishing a Maine Veteran Home Stabilization Fund. So it's going to remove the $200,000 one-time general fund in 21-22, and we're creating the Maine Veteran Home Stabilization Fund to assist the board in ensuring the continuous operation of the homes. It includes an OSR allocation of $500 to open up the fund.
So moved as amended. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 15? All right, how about page 16? Didn't see anything on page 16. Okay. We're going to move to page 17, and I'm going to move LD 575, an act to establish a conditional presumption of compensability for certain employees in cases of impairment from hypertension or heart disease. So I am going to, as amended, the bill shifts the burden of proof that an employee of the state whose regular or incidental duties require the care, supervision, or custody of a person confined in a state correctional facility contracted heart disease or hypertension as a result of that employment from the claimant to the state and may result in increased costs to Workers' Compensation Management Fund within the Department of Administrative and Financial Services beginning in fiscal year 22-23. But the amendment removes the mandate on the counties. No, it removes, yes, it removes the mandate. It removes counties from the bill. Clear. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any questions? Representative Arata?
Thank you. I'm trying to understand. So you're removing counties from being responsible. So who is responsible then?
This deals with people who are in correctional facilities, so it would exempt county jails, but it would apply to people in state-run correctional facilities.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? Representative Corey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is corrections officers, though, right? It's not just people generally in facilities.
Correct. It's
Okay.
employees.
Cool.
Yes. Any further questions? All those in favor? 13-0. Okay. Okay, so 11-2. All right, thank you. Anything else on page 17? So on page 18, I think Representative Cardone is going to move this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm moving LD 585. I don't have an amendment, but I do have an explanation. LD 585, which is one of the tribal state bills, has a general fund appropriation of a little over $200,000 and extending outward. But it also has a revenue stream, expected revenue stream of well over that, well over $1 million. So what we have chosen to do, I understand there were a couple of options. What we have chosen to do here is to fund the appropriation through the revenue stream that is going to be generated, but not further spend the revenue stream in this session. So that the appropriation will be offset by the revenue stream. We don't have to appropriate anything from any other source, but we'll deal with the rest of the revenue stream in a later session. And with that explanation, I move LD 585.
And is that an amendment?
It's not an amendment, it's an explanation,
Okay.
given the way that the fiscal note and the funding is breaking down. I just wanted to make sure that everyone was clear as to what we were choosing to fund, how we were choosing to fund it, and what revenues are not going to be allocated at this point.
Thank you. Senator Bailey?
I would just like to second the motion. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
May I get a point of clarification? So
Sure.
are you stripping the appropriation in the bill?
Maureen, I have spoken with Chris Nolan about this as to how this is going to, what we were going to do. So if I'm not using the correct words or words that are still confusing to you, perhaps Chris can fill you in. I don't think I'm stripping the appropriation altogether. We're funding the appropriation from the expected revenue.
Okay,
Is that?
So there's some sort of offset.
Yes.
And you're amending the bill to allow for that offset.
No, may I? Yeah, I don't think there's any amendment needed here. The bill has positive revenue. It has a general fund appropriation. The positive revenue is well in excess of the general fund appropriation. So if you do nothing with this bill except pass it just like it is, the money is not being spent in this bill. Now, what's really going to happen is it'll just roll into undedicated revenue. That's not to say some other bill wouldn't try to grab it later, but it'll be available if that doesn't happen. You know, it would just be part of regular general fund. I don't think.
So I'm sorry. So the motion was in?
Yeah.
The motion was in and Mark
Oh.
just explained what I was
I'm
trying to.
sorry. I thought
explain.
your motion was to amend. Thank you.
No. It was a motion to move in, and I was trying to provide, not nearly as articulately as Mark just did, the explanation of how the funding was going to work, but I was not amending.
So the motion is ought to pass from Representative Cardone. It's been seconded by Senator Bailey. Any further discussion? Representative Millet.
Just a clarifying question, the bill in its original form had an appropriation of $207,023. The summary indicates 200,000 even. Which is the number of the appropriation? Is it the fiscal note number or the number in the summary that you gave us?
I would defer to Mark Seer on that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with not sure I know what you're looking at, Solon, but yeah, to our understanding, it's 207,023. But if you want to take a second, I can try to look at the engrossed version of the bill to see, or if you have it there, I can look at it.
My understanding was that the 200,000 was a round off estimate, that 207,023 was the amount.
So you might be looking at an estimate and now it's been further refined. All set, Representative Millet? Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? 7, those opposed? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And is the opposition ought not to pass? Is that your?
There's no minority report on table.
Okay, never mind. Okay, so we've moved on from LD 585. Anything else on page 18? Anything on page 19? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 647, an act to expand eligibility for the veterans property tax exemption as amended. I move it in. And the amendment changes the bill to apply to property taxes based on the status of property on or after April 1st, 2023, instead of April 1st, 2022. The general fund appropriation needed in fiscal 23-24 is not needed until fiscal 24-25.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Millet. So LD 647 has been moved ought to pass as amended and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 19 before we move on? Okay. Page 20, anything there? Representative Hymanson.
Thank you. LD 665, an act to promote better dental care for cancer survivors. So there are certain, and it is as amended, motion is ought to pass as amended, with the amendment being to push out the date a year. There are certain health plans which to cover dental procedures for people at risk for dental problems which are directly related to their cancer treatment.
So it's been moved ought to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second by Representative Millet. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 20? Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 679, an act to establish a statewide electronic warrant system, and I would move it in.
Move it in, ought to pass, just as it is. All right, is there a second? Seconded by Senator Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 20 before we move on? Seeing none, let's go on to page 21. Representative Fay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move in LD 700 as amended. And the amendment reads, all revenue in excess of $5,476,268 from user fees from state parks, historic sites in the Allagash Wilderness Waterway, and other payments for certain services after all other adjustments have been made to accrue to a non-lapsing dedicated revenue account to be used for capital improvements at state parks and historic sites. This account may also be used to match federal allocations. Additionally, I'd like to push the effective date of that out to 2025.
Okay, so Representative Fay has moved ought to pass as amended on LD 700. Is second by Representative Martin. Any discussion?
Just a point of clarification, I'm
Yes.
sorry. So that effective date was moved to
Can you repeat the effective
the
date?
effective date?
2025.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on
Yes,
page
Chair.
21, Senator Davis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 684, resolve to amend main care reimbursement provisions governing supplemental payments to nursing facilities and with high main care use. I move it in with amended, and I received an email early this morning from Maureen that it needs an emergency clause, so I believe that's what the amendment will be.
I don't think I said that.
Want me to read the email?
No, what I said was if you have funding in the first year in this current fiscal year, you would need an emergency clause. So it is up to you.
I'll move it in.
You want the
Yeah.
emergency clause on it?
Yes.
Okay. So it's been moved as amended to add an emergency clause so the money can be used in this existing fiscal year. Is there any, is there a second? Representative Millet seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 21? All right, move on to page 22. Representative Hymanson.
Thank you. I will make a motion to move in LD 716. The amendment, as amended, the amendment is to move the date by 1 year. So the Federal Office of Inspector General in the 128th reported to us that we needed to understand better the deaths and serious injuries that occurred in this group of dependent people. Now we have the opportunity to create an ongoing panel. So this LD 716 establishes the Aging and Disability Mortality Review Panel to review deaths of and serious injuries to all adults receiving home-based and community-based services under waiver programs.
So are you amending it?
I amend, it's ought to pass as amended, moving the date out 1 year.
Great, thank you. Is there a second? Oh, looks like Luke Lazar has a.
Yeah, so I need to clarify something there, Representative Hymanson. So in this bill, LD 716, there were two distinct panels being created. One had to do with the Aging and Disability Mortality Review Panel, but that was in the budget last year. All that language and the funding for positions was in the budget last year. So all that remains was the creation of well, it was moving funding for the Maine Developmental Services Oversight and Advisory Committee. So that funding still needs to be moved, and that there was also a panel that goes along with that had to be retained because that language was not in the budget last year. In the end, what this does is there is no, with this amendment, there'll be no new appropriations required. All that's happening is funding is moving from DHHS to DAFs. to where this new board is going to be housed. But there's no new funding required because the new funding that was originally in this bill was funded in the budget last year.
Okay, so do we have to amend this at all? Or should I say that the amendment is that we'll strip, I don't like the word strip.
Yeah, so I would say the appropriation strips the appropriations specifically for the Aging, Disability, Mortality Review Panel and removes all language in the bill that goes along with the Aging and Disability Mortality Review Panel.
Okay,
Does that
yes.
make sense?
So what Luke said.
So in as amended per
Yeah.
Luke.
Yep. Thank you, Luke.
Okay.
Is there
welcome.
a second? Second by Representative Cloutier. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. The next one is a bill I'll be addressing, LD 730. I'm going to move it, ought to pass as amended. I'm stripping the original bill that dealt with Pine Tree Development Zone programs and inserting this amendment that transfers responsibility for the Citizen Trade Policy Commission from the legislature to the Maine International Trade Center within the Department of Economic and Community Development, beginning in fiscal year 22-23. The amendment includes ongoing general fund appropriations of $27,620 per year, beginning in fiscal year 22-23 to the International Commerce Program within DECD and corresponding general fund de-appropriation to the Citizen Trade Policy Commission within the legislature to transfer the funding from the legislature to DECD. That was a mouthful. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Millet. And Representative Hymanson, you have a live mic if you want to know that. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 22 before we move on? Senator Davis.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 731, an act to establish a program to assist regional firefighter training program to provide tax credits to businesses that employ volunteer firefighters and emergency medical services person, and to provide benefits to volunteer firefighters and emergency medical services persons. And I would move it in as amended. And again, it's a tax change, and the bill starts in tax years beginning on or after January 1st, 2021. And it would have to have a change.
And would that, sorry, looks like Mark Sear has a question.
I don't think we've seen an amendment. Did you mean to amend it, or is it just ought to pass?
Well, I got the email I got from Maureen earlier this morning.
Well, that might be another one that,
That date would need to be changed, I believe.
The date would have to be changed, she says. So the amendment would change the date.
move it out a year?
I would think so. I believe that so. yes.
Okay, I'm just gonna make sure that's
Yeah,
what
sure, make sure with them.
Representative,
I think we'd move it to 22-23 rather than 21-22.
is that, Mark, is that?
Well, clearly we can, do whatever you want. You
Okay,
just
so we're
wanna
gonna move
it out
it.
a year, is that?
Yeah, we're gonna move it out a year.
Okay,
Yes, that's
All
fine.
right.
Yes.
So it's been moved ought to pass as amended, moving the tax benefit out 1 year. Is there a second? Second by Representative Millet. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Sure thing. Well, we dealt with all three on page 22, so we will move on to page 23. Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move ought to pass as amended LD 756, an act regarding criminal services for juveniles. We are going to be removing all aspects of the bill except for the Department of Education, School and Student Support Services. Will provide one-time funding to establish or expand school-based juvenile restorative justice programs, mentoring services for juveniles, involved in the juvenile legal system, and in collaboration with the Department of Labor, Workforce Development, Educational and Vocational Programs for juveniles involved in the juvenile legal system. We'll be funding this at $1 million. There's 300,000 coming from the settlement funds from the Attorney General and $700,000 coming from the liquor fund.
So Representative Purse has moved LD 756 ought to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second by Senator Bailey. Any discussion? Representative Arada?
I just want to confirm that we agreed on spending $12 million total, split between the 4 caucuses. Is that correct?
We agreed on $12 million of general fund appropriations.
Mhm. Yeah, I just want to confirm. Thank you.
Sure. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, wait, was there a second? Yeah, it was seconded by Senator Bailey. Sure.
I'm not sure I heard the answer to Representative Arada, but was it clear in your motion, Representative Purse, that it would be a one-time appropriation of 1 million?
Correct, with those 2 sources of funding, one settlement funds and the other the liquor, the liquor account,
One time.
one time.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Looks like 11, 10 and opposed? 1, did you vote, John? Oh, 4, okay, so that means 12-1, or was there another opposed? Sorry. 12-1, okay. Anything else on page 23? Okay, moving on to page 24. Anything on page 24? I have one at the bottom, LD 811. I'm going to move ought to pass as amended. It reduces the appropriation. The amendment changes the general fund appropriation to the Department of Health and Human Services from $628,551 to $239,821 in fiscal year 22-23 due to an adjustment to federal match for the new payments. This amendment also increases the federal expenditures fund allocation. So I'll move it ought to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second by Senator Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor? 7 and opposed? Oh, wait, 8. There was 8 and then opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 opposed. That's only 12 people. Can we do, sorry, can we do in favor again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those opposed? 5. Thank you. That adds up to 13. All right. Anything else on page 24 before we move on to page 25? All those in favor? I'm sorry, moving on. All those in favor, moving on to page 25?
Yes.
Okay,
Unanimously, yes.
together. Anything on page 25? Any of those bills going to be? Representative Cloutier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move in as amended LD 844, which is an act to examine and amend the conditions of release and probation. And the amendment moves this out to FY 22-23 and reduces, the sponsor did significant work with the department and reduced the fiscal note to $40,000 for that year, one-time funding.
Okay, so it's been moved ought to pass as amended. The amendment's been described. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Martin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favor and opposed? 2. Thank you. Anything else on page 25? Sorry. I don't know.
Madam Chair, I believe somebody is supposed to be moving in LD 853. If they are not, I will do so.
We're still on 844, correcting the vote.
I'm sorry.
No
That's
worries.
okay. So in favor of LD 844 as amended, please put up your hand and leave it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And opposed? 2. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Representative Millet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is the bill that Representative Cardone mentioned, but I would like to move in LD 853, an act to increase the fees paid to sheriffs and their deputies for service of civil process documents. Bill was sponsored by Representative Matlack. It asked for $193,705 in each year. House Republicans would like to contribute half of that amount, an even $97,000. And I believe there is another contributor to make up the difference. So our proposal is to fund half of that and move it in as amended. And I suspect there'll be another half after that.
Two questions. What is the LD? I missed that, I'm sorry.
So we're on LD 853.
853, and the motion is,
It's ought to pass as amended.
and the amendment is?
And the amendment is pushing it out of date, but sharing the cost between the House Republican.
Yeah, that wouldn't be part of the amendment.
right.
So
But it's
push-
a joint effort to fund this
I get that.
with our two lists. I know it doesn't really matter
So
to,
853 is amended, pushing the data.
Correct.
Thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
no worries.
So the motion is ought to pass as amended on LD 853. And we're pushing the date out to the coming fiscal year. It's been seconded by Senator Davis. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. And I would just say as a commentary that the two House caucuses are sharing, in terms of the pots of money, are sharing the cost of that. Anything else on page 25 before we move on? All right, moving on to page 26. Anything there that we'll be working on? Representative Fay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move LD 898 in. Ought to pass.
All right. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Cloutier. The motion is ought to pass. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 26 before we
Yes.
move on?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to move LD 903 in.
You'd like to move that ought to pass?
Yes,
No amendments?
no amendments.
Okay, it's been moved ought to pass. Is there a second? LD 903. Moved ought to pass by Representative Cardone, seconded by Senator Bailey. Any discussion, Representative Millet?
Madam Chair and Representative Cardone, the notes on the sheet say one time. Is that your intent?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So that's a one-time appropriation. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 26 before we move on? Okay, moving on to page 27. And this is LD 910. And I will describe this. We are changing so we're basically striking the bill. And the amendment strikes the general fund appropriation from the bill and replaces it with a one-time other special revenue fund allocation to DHHS of $10 million in fiscal year 22-23 for supplemental payments to municipalities for the unanticipated fiscal and operational costs of the general assistance program related to the COVID-19 pandemic. It also includes a transfer of $10 million by June 30th, 2022 from the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund within the Maine Municipal Bond Bank to the unappropriated surplus of the general fund, and a transfer of $10 million by June 30th, 2022 from the unappropriated surplus of the general fund to the general assistance reimbursements to cities and towns, other special revenue fund. So this is a fund that is going to go directly to the cities, the three biggest cities in the state who are dealing with the most severe housing emergency and homeless crises. And it's a one-time allocation lump sum to deal with the immediate issue that they're going to be losing money that comes from FEMA starting on July 1 of 2022. So this is to help them bridge that gap for a short amount of time. Again, it's a one-time allocation. So I will move that ought to pass as amended. Second by Representative Cloutier. Is there any? Yes, Representative Millet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you just clarified one of my questions. The source is a grant from FEMA to the state of
No.
10 million?
No. FEMA money is going to run out on June 30th.
Okay.
And this is going to be a one-time grant or allocation out of the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund to the three biggest cities, so that when that funding stops, they will have a little bit of a bridge to figure out how they're going to fill that gap with other sources to make up for the FEMA money that's going away.
So maybe my other question, probably the more important one, I thought I heard you reference the general fund, and I was just curious as to, what did I mishear that?
The money is going from the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund within the Municipal Bond Bank to a transfer to general assistance reimbursements to cities, towns, other special revenue fund. Mark Sear.
Yeah, that's just to clarify, that is where it winds up, but it goes from the Liquor Operations Revenue Fund to the unappropriated surplus of the general fund. And then there's a second transfer out of the unappropriated surplus of the general fund to the final destination that she's mentioning. So it goes from one place to the general fund and then out of the general fund to the other place. So ultimately, it's like the general fund is whole on that transfer. It's not really coming out of any general fund balance in the end, but it goes there and then comes out. So the net effect is what she said, which is it comes from the Liquor Operation Fund at the Maine Municipal Bond Bank to the General Assistance Reimbursement to Cities and Towns of the Special Revenue Fund account.
Does that answer your question?
I understand the mechanics. I guess my question is probably something I wish I'd asked before. We took 36 million out of the liquor revenue bond to balance the supplemental. Is there an additional 10 million there? Because we've already tapped it once earlier today, and I'm just curious as to the projected balance and availability of $10 million on top of what we already had taken.
We started with 54 million in that account. So 36 and 10 is 46, which leaves.
Mark could confirm that, Senator. I don't question your word. I think that the reference I remember from taking the 36 was that 54 was inclusive of amounts taken previously, or am I wrong?
What I've got is the projected balance at the end of fiscal year 22. That's with the $20 million taking from LD, what, 715, whatever that was last year, would be 72,150,000. And then another 20 million is being taken out of LD, I believe it was 715, plus you added 37 million in 221. So, but the balance then, and I think after all is said and done, and I have it through all of the transfers, I think would be about 18.7 million projected into 2023. After, and that's including, I believe, some that haven't been proposed yet. So I can't back those out just in my head, but
Any further discussion? Was there a second? Seconded by Representative Cloutier. Thank you. Oh. We're going to take a minute to let our two members come back.
Just because it's always a good thing, standing up while we have this moment, shaking yourself out is healthy for you. So that's why I'm doing it.
It includes our president.
Yeah, I'm including our friends in the audience.
So we apparently just took a little break and now we're back. We're still on LD 910. It's been moved as amended and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? 8 and opposed? 8-5. And Senator Davis has requested that we go back to back to LD 811 on page 24. He wants to change his vote, so I'll just make another motion to move that ought to pass as amended. Seconded by
I'll second it.
Representative Peirce. All those in favor?
Sorry. Yeah, I think you're
We
making a
need to-
motion to reconsider. Is that what you're
Yeah,
doing?
they're just straw votes, but whatever.
whatever.
Sure. Yeah, we can move to reconsider. So Senator Davis, would you like to move to reconsider?
Yes, Madam Chair, I believe I voted on the affirmative on LD 811 and I move to reconsider.
Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Representative Peirce. All in favor of the motion to reconsider? 13-0. And I will make the motion again of ought to pass as amended. And seconded by Representative Peirce. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? 8 opposed? 5. Thank you. Sure thing. Sorry. 7-6, pardon me. 7-6 ought to pass as amended.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
while we're on the reconsideration, I made an error in one of the bills early on, and I'd like to make a motion to reconsider LD 177.
Okay, I'll second.
It is on page 3, way back when. This is LD 177, an act to support apprenticeship programs.
So let's just do the reconsideration.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. So all those in favor of reconsideration? 13-0, go ahead.
And I was unaware that another body was interested in funding this. And so I'm happy to make the motion of that other body, or if you would like to do that, Senator Breen, I'm happy to have you do it as well.
Let me see if I have it in front of me. Okay, I have it in front of me. This amendment reduces the general fund cost of the bill by $200,000 in fiscal year 22-23 by requiring the state controller to transfer $200,000 from the medical use marijuana fund within the Department of Administrative and Financial Services to the unappropriated surplus of the general fund no later than June 30, 2023. As amended, the bill still includes ongoing general fund appropriations totaling $400,000 per year, beginning in fiscal year 22-23 to the Employment Services Activity Program within the Department of Labor to support apprenticeship programs. So I will move that ought to pass as amended.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 12 opposed, 1.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So the only change is the person that made the motion?
Sorry?
The only change to this is that a different person made the motion?
No, the change is that I believe in 2023, $200,000, well, amending it down from $400 to $200,000, and the money is coming from the adult use marijuana fund.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. So there is a different amendment.
I have to defer, I'm going to defer to, maybe we should take a corner caucus. I apologize. It's
That's all
not
right.
my
Let's just-
amendment. So.
Yeah, let's just take a minute.
amended.
Yes, so the motion is ought to pass as amended, seconded by Representative Peirce, and I think we've voted already, right? We voted 12-1. Yes, Representative
Can
Hymanson.
I just have clarity? It's the medical use of marijuana fund.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
My mistake.
Okay. So we're gonna move on. Okay. So we are back to page 27. And I would like to know if there's any further action on any of the LDs on page 27. Representative Cloutier?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would like to move in LD 912, which is an act to extend family medical leave to hourly school employees. No amendments.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 and opposed? 2. Anything else on page 27 before we move on? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, of turning the page? All those in favor of turning the page? Okay, page 28. Oh, my goodness. Top of page, so Representative Hymanson?
I have LD 972 if someone has one before then.
I have LD 965.
Okay, Representative Cardone, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to move this in as amended, or move to amend. My understanding on this is that we are moving in the language only, that the fiscal note of 84,000 has, it's the governor's office that has agreed to pick up that cost. So I guess I'm looking to OFPR as exactly what my amendment should state, but the cost isn't coming from the general fund.
It's coming from existing resources, within existing resources.
Within existing resources, then I think we only need to move the language portion of LD 1965 in.
Are we removing the appropriation, or is the appropriation being reimbursed in the general fund from some other place? I wasn't clear on that. The appropriation is staying and we're getting some money from somewhere else, or is the appropriation going away and it'll just not be funded?
So this is LD 965, an act concerning
Right.
non-disclosure agreements in employment. And my understanding is that it will be covered within existing resources within the Department of Labor.
So strike the appropriate.
Correct.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Peirce. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in favor and opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 9-4. Okay, anything else? Representative Hymanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 972, an act to establish the Rare Disease Advisory Council. I'd like to move that in as amended, with the amendment being a date change, moving it out 1 year. So the time is right for a Rare Disease Advisory Council because there is important and expensive therapies, gene therapies, and others coming, and we need to be prepared as a state. This also allows people and their families who have rare diseases to have an advisory council working on their sides.
So it's been moved ought to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second by Representative Martin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. And I just want to give a minor comment for public edification about when we move something out a year. we are already mostly done with the first year of this biennium. So when we move it out a year, we're proposing that the funding start on July 1. So we're not going to be funding it for just a couple months in this fiscal year. We're going to do nothing usually in this fiscal year unless there's an emergency clause, but start the funding on July 1 in the next fiscal year. So that's why, because of where we are in the biennium, that's why we're often moving things 1 year ahead. Okay, anything else on page 28? Moving on to page 29, is there anything anyone wants to move on page 29? Not seeing any, we'll move to page 30. Representative Hymanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move in LD 1003, an act to improve outcomes for persons with limb loss. And I move it in as a, I move it in.
Move ought to pass.
Ought to pass,
All
yeah.
right.
I'd like to just say, if I may, that this bill came up out of a conversation with a legislator and a person who was under 18, who had lost a limb, and she was an athlete and could not afford to have a prosthetic device made to support her athletic pursuits. Thank you. So this mandates certain health insurance companies to pay for sports-related prosthetic for limb loss in people under 18. And the very small fiscal note reflects the state health plan costs.
It was seconded by Representative Martin. Looks like Luke has a comment.
I did just want to clarify, Representative Hymanson, and make sure, because you did say amend and then you said not, but there was an amendment for this to move everything out a year. So I just wanted to make sure which way we're going.
Okay, it says it starts on this paper in front of me in 2023. If that's the case, then it doesn't need an amendment. If I'm wrong, then it does. The amendment would be to reflect the time.
Well, the moving it out a year has to do with when the specific change gets applied to the employee health and benefits. And it's based on a certain time, a certain place in time, and saying that the next contract that's signed has to include this.
I see.
And so I think it can go either way. So I just want to make sure which one you're doing.
I want to do the one that would make sense with the contract. And I'm not sure which one that is.
Representative Peirce?
Thank you. I think that your motion was to just ought to pass without an amendment, and the funding begins in 23-24, which gives plenty of time for this work to be done to hit that moment in time. Is that correct, Representative Hymanson?
It is, as long as the contract with the state health plan, that's the right time for them.
That I cannot answer.
And I don't know, because I'm looking at it and under the current, so if it were just to be ought to pass, it requires that any contract executed after January 1st, 2023, which obviously is in the future. So I think technically it's possible. I just know that generally when these bills are being done, they give more time than that just for the process of it all.
Well, I'm going to make that assumption that it needs to be pushed out a year, because I think it does take into account the contract that needs to happen for the next cycle. So,
okay, so then it would, then you're doing an ought to pass as amended to push it out a year. That's
Yes.
what you're suggesting. Okay, thank you. That clarifies.
All set, Luke? Okay.
A motion has been made, ought to pass as amended, and there's
been a second. Okay. All in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 30? Not seeing anything. Moving on to page 31. Senator Bailey is going to speak to LD 1091.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move in LD 1091 ought to pass as amended. The amendment is to just push the dates out as you've heard often today. This is a bill having to do with helping children who are in foster care at the time they turn 18 transition, the so-called V9 program, and as well as just helping these individual young adults transition. I think it's a bill that really helps us hopefully break the cycle of child abuse. So I move ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Martin. And I would just highlight that this is for kids who voluntarily want to stay in the foster care system after age 18. So any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 31 before we move on? All right, turning the page to page 32. Anything happening on any of the bills on page 32? No? Okay, page 33. Anything happening in any of those bills? Not seeing any. Turning to page 34. Anything happening on any of the bills on page 34? Not seeing any. Anything on page 35? Not seeing any. We'll turn to page 36. Anything happening on page 36? Nope. Okay. Anything on page 37? Nothing there. Turn the page. We're on LD, we're on page 38, and I am going to move LD 1357. This is a bill, an act to clarify health insurance coverage for postpartum care. And I'm just going to move ought to pass. Second by Representative Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page? Yes, Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 1358. Resolved, directing the Bureau of Alcoholic Beverages and Lottery Operations to reevaluate direct-to-consumer wine and spirit sales. I would move it in as amended. The amendment transfers $100,000 in the fiscal year 2022-23 from the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund within the Maine Municipal Bank to the unappropriated surplus of the general fund to offset the cost of the appropriation in the bill.
I second that.
All right, and that's a one-time transfer?
Yes.
One time. Any further discussion?
Can I have a second? Oh, she
Oh,
seconded. I'm sorry.
Representative Peirce seconded.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Looks like 12 opposed, 1. There'll be no spirits delivered to your house, I hate to say.
Now,
What was the one we did before?
1357.
Great, thank you.
it was 13-0.
Anything further on page 38? Okay, moving on to page 39. Representative Hymanson.
Thank you. Draw your attention to LD 1386, which is a resolve to improve access to bariatric care as amended. No, straight ought to pass. This bill helps the care of people who are have compromised medical status because of their weight. And it improves the ability to take care of them by building the appropriate bed sizes to afford them good care.
All right, Luke has his hand up.
So Representative Hymanson, this bill has, the way it's set up, there are certain items that had to be completed by August 31st
Oh,
of 2021.
I'm sorry, you're right.
So, yeah,
Yes, it's
okay.
not an appropriation, but if you could, as amended to move the dates forward, there are certain benchmarks to get this done, and we would move those benchmarks to develop a plan, develop the way forward, and then develop the beds. And I would move, the amendment would be to move all of those dates forward a year.
Is that okay? Does that work for you, Luke? All right. And it's been seconded. Representative Fay has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 39? Representative Hymanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 1390, an act to maximize health care coverage for the uninsured through easy enrollment in the main care program or in a qualified health plan in the marketplace. This would be an ought to pass as amended, and the amendment would be to change the appropriation to the amount that I told you, Luke. 58,000. Oh, thank you. There we go. Thank you very much.
So what you had suggested to me was it's moving out the implementation date to have it begin in tax years beginning January 1 of 2023 instead of January 1 of 2022. Obviously, we're already into 2022, so that's why that change was suggested. And along with that, it moves all the appropriations that were originally in the bill that were main care related, move out a year. But what you did keep were the appropriations to fund that the Bureau of Revenue Services needed to put the actual checkbox on the forms. So it's $58,855 that will still be appropriated in this bill to fund that particular change.
That's exactly right. Thank you. And that is my amendment, to move out the dates and to change the appropriation for the first year to $58,855. This amendment puts a checkbox on the main income tax form that allows an individual who is filing to identify that that individual or the spouse or dependents are uninsured, and it authorizes the Bureau to share that information with the marketplace.
All right. So Representative Fay has seconded. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? 13-0, thank you. Anything else on page 39 before we move on? All right, moving on to page 40. Any discussion, anything on page 40 that anyone wants to move or amend? All right, moving on to page 41. Anything there? Representative Cloutier?
Thank you. I would like to move in LD 1467, an act to promote a circular economy through increased post-consumer recycled plastic content in plastic beverage containers. And that is a straight ought to pass.
All right, ought to pass. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and opposed? 2. If we're finished with page 41, we'll move on to page 42. Anything on page 42 anyone would like to move? Representative Cloutier, you have a live mic, by the way.
Are we on page 42?
We're on page 42.
I have one on that page, Madam Chair.
Okay, we're right where we need to be.
Great. This is LD 1488, the resolve to study and recommend improvements to Maine's dam safety. I'd like to move this ought to pass as amended, and I'm pushing the dates out to 2022-23.
And it's a
One-time resolve to study the dams across the state.
All right. I will second that. And is there any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 42? If not, we'll move on to page 43. Anything on page 43? All right, I don't see anything. We'll move on to page 44. Anything on page 44? Representative Millet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move in LD 1513, an act to establish the Maine Abandoned and Discontinued Roads Commission, sponsored by Representative Newman of Belgrade. It asks for $63,107 in fiscal 23, and I would move it in as the fiscal note reflects.
Okay, so you move on to pass.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Only for 23, right?
Sorry, well, let me just see if
I'll
there's a
second it. I'll
second by
second it.
Representative Peirce. Representative Martin, you have a question?
Yeah, it's only for 23.
Doesn't,
It is.
that's not what the fiscal note says.
It is a fiscal note of 63,107 in 23. It does have a small increase in the upcoming biennium each year.
Okay, so all we're doing is moving it a year.
Right.
But it's ongoing. It's not one time.
Yeah.
Okay, great. You have a live mic, Representative Martin. Any further questions? Discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 44 before we move on? All right, page 45, anything there? Representative Hymanson?
Thank you. I move in LD 1539, an act to provide access to fertility care. This is a ought to pass.
I'll
I'm
second
looking
that.
at Luke to see if there's a date change.
This one is similar to one of the ones we did earlier where it requires the employee health plan to add this after the next contract on a certain year. And this similarly had the January 1 of, this had a January 1 of 24 as the application date. So it's up to you whether you amend it to push it out a year to January 25 or leave it as January of 24.
I would leave it at 24. And so that's ought to pass. And this requires certain health insurance plans to cover fertility care if it is deemed clinically appropriate.
Second.
Moved by Representative Hymanson ought to pass, seconded by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? All those in favor? Senator Davis, you're on the fence. No, all right. Keep your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In favor and opposed? 10-3. I think we're all set with page 45, so we'll move on to page 46. Anything on page 46 anyone wants to move? Representative Millet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call your attention to LD 1554, an act to provide for climate change transition assistance to Maine's energy intensive businesses, sponsored by Representative Wadsworth. I'd like to move in the bill with a one-time appropriation of $500,000 in FY23. So it would be in as amended, striking the FY 21-22 fiscal note and putting 500,000 in FY 23,
As a one-time.
one time.
All right. Is there a second? Second by Representative Peirce. So any further discussion on ought to pass LD 1554 as amended? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 46? Seeing none, we'll move on to page 47. Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ought to pass as amended LD 1569, a resolve establishing a commission to study the role of water as a resource in the state of Maine. This amendment removes the one-time appropriation of $20,000 in fiscal year 21-22 to the legislature for the cost of securing outside part-time staffing or funding. The removal of this then sends this bill to legislative council as it is a task force.
So it goes to the study table.
Study table, excuse me. Ought to pass as amended.
Second by Representative Cloutier. So rather than a general fund appropriation, it goes to the study table, which is something that the Ledge Council decides which ones they're going to fund. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 47? All right, we'll go to page 48. I'm going to work on LD 1579. I'm going to move that ought to pass. Second by Senator Bailey. This is the bill that encourages the public entities in the state to move their vehicle fleets to electric zero emission vehicles. And it's in the bill, it says as practicable. So it's one of those goal setting sort of bills that doesn't have an actual deadline or mandate. Any further discussion? Representative Millet.
Just a question, Madam Chair. I noted the fiscal picture is for the highway fund as well, and that the highway table group moved or voted 6-5 odd not to pass. How does that impact what we might do here this morning?
It's a great question. Mr. Seer?
Yeah, if you vote this in, you would be going against the wishes of the highway table. It was a 6-5 vote, but it would be going against their wishes. They voted 6-5 ONTP, not to pass 6-5.
So what does that mean for the ultimate outcome of the LD?
Well, at this point.
If we're in a different place in the highway table.
Yeah, if you voted, it would go upstairs to be enacted.
Representative Martin?
That's up to the highway table.
It came out of EUT then, or whatever.
The highway table is already met, and they wanted this to be out not to pass. Essentially it's on both tables. So it can only be on one. You have to decide whether you want to take what they did into consideration or not. It's really, there's several of those bills, and I have them noted which ones they are on in the report. You can see that on the report. But yeah, it's.
Does that answer your question, Representative Millet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's a little confusing, basically, whether or not we're going to overturn the recommendation for transportation. And I don't think I'm willing to do that.
Any further discussion? Okay. So all those in favor of LD 1579? 6, 7, and opposed? 3, 4, 5, 6. Anything else on page 48? All right, we will move on to page 49. Anything on page 49? Anybody? Oh, Representative Cloutier.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move in LD 1610, an act to promote equity in policymaking by enhancing the state's ability to collect, analyze, and apply data. And this is an ought to pass as amended.
Okay.
So it reduces the number of positions to one data governance architect position within the Maine State Archives, one public service coordinator, one position within the Permanent Commission on the Status of Racial, Indigenous, and Tribal Populations, and one public service coordinator, one position within the Office of the State Economist. And that brings the fiscal note down to $315,568.
And that's an ongoing appropriation.
Yep, beginning in FY 22-23.
Great.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 8 and opposed? 5. Finishing with page 49, we'll move on to page 50. Anything on page 50? Anything on page 51? Yes, Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move in, ought to pass as amended, LD 1654, an act to stabilize the state funding for county corrections. I would like to strip the fiscal note from this bill and keep all of the language we provided for this funding in the supplemental. So ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Millet. Any further discussion? All set, Mark and Maureen? Okay, all those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 51? Representative Peirce?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to ought to pass as amended LD 1656. This is an act to promote energy efficient, affordable housing. I'm striking everything from the bill and providing a new amendment, and that amendment works to work with the Maine Housing Authority for the improving the building efficiency standards for buildings that are funded through the Maine Housing Authority. So ought to pass as amended. There's no fiscal note to that. So the striking of the fiscal note in this as well.
You're striking the appropriation.
Yeah, the appropriation, excuse me.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Fay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in favor and opposed? Wait, I only have one opposed. Was Solomon, were you opposed as well? Okay, so we have 12-1. Representative Corey, were you in favor? Okay, thank you. Anything else on page 51?
Would you mind if I circle back to LD 1654? I'm trying to figure out what the amendment was. I think I dozed off.
So 1654 was a striking of the appropriation and allocation from that, but keeping the language. We provided the 1.9 million in the supplemental, but the language was not accounted for.
Yeah, I just want to point out that in the bill as it sits now, there is no appropriation and it's showing in the out year. So there's not actually anything.
So I just need the language from the bill.
So and the intent is that the future appropriation is not there either, or
I'm
not sure.
I think that must be correct because of what we did
Yeah,
in the supplemental. But
probably.
I apologize for.
Well,
that.
if there's, yeah, I mean,
And you're keeping all of the language that's in the bill now. And that language results in costs in the out year, so it probably wouldn't change the fiscal note.
Okay.
But there's no appropriation in this.
Correct.
So are you,
Could be out to pass, just straight out to pass. I
Oh, it
think.
could be? Well,
Yeah.
wonderful. Let's just do straight out to
Okay.
pass. How clean
Thank
and
you.
nice is that? Ought to pass, Madam Chair, of LD, move to reconsider LD 1654.
Second. All those in favor of reconsideration? 13-0.
I'll move ought to pass.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Martin. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 51? All right, turning to page 52. Anything on page 52?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move LD 1673 as amended. So the positions in this bill were included in the supplemental budget, and so we just need to incorporate the language only.
So the motion is move on to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second by Senator Bailey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 52? Yes, Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move in as amended LD 1679 and act to address student hunger through expanding access to the free school meals program. We'll be striking all of the bill as we have already put that into law, but adding 2 elements in language only. One of them is to include let me get my big sheet of paper here.
Your proclamation.
I have a proclamation. On this bill. Feel like Thomas Jefferson. All it does is add in this section of 20-A, which is the Education Statute 6601, it adds a sentence at the bottom that all public schools must accept the data submitted through the internet-based application. This is to make sure that we're just getting all the information we need from this school lunch program that we put into the supplemental, and it clarifies that for districts going forward. And then we also have language that will direct the Department of Education to do some analysis. When this bill was drafted, it included all public schools in its language, but not all public school children, because some public school kids go to town academies because that's what offered in their community. So those kids were left out of the analysis around utilizing this system. And so we want the Department of Education to do a little research and gather information around those kids that are public school kids in town academies who we would like to include as receiving funding for this. They're to bring those findings back to the Education and Cultural Affairs Committee in February of 2023 and give that analysis plus any indication of what it might cost to do that. And then the committee has the ability to put out a committee bill, should they so choose, to address that issue. That was a lot of words. I had a big piece of paper.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Bailey. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 52? Okay, moving on to page 53. Anything there? Senator Davis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, LD 1686, an act to implement a geographically limited public defender's office. I would move it in as amended. And the amendment that I have is this amendment replaces a bill and provides general fund appropriations of $1,241,477 beginning in the fiscal year 2022-23 to the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services to establish 1 direct defender position, 2 assistant defender positions, that's right, 2 assistant defender 1 positions, 2 assistant defender 2 positions, and related costs, and for online legal research access and annual reimbursement for written legal materials purchased by attorneys. The physical note reflects an incremental funding difference between the amendment and the bill, and my understanding is it's going to be shared by all four caucuses.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Cloutier. So this is an investment in the Maine Commission on Indigent Legal Services of, what did you say, 1.2 million roughly?
It's 1,241,477.
An ongoing appropriation.
Yes.
And that is going to be shared by all four caucuses. Representative Millet.
I think you just made the point I wanted to make. It is a joint effort on the part of all four caucuses, I believe,
Yes.
to contribute approximately 311,000 per caucus.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Cardone.
Yes, I'm grateful to Senator Davis for moving this in, but I think that the amendment proposed needs some further refinement in order to be accurate. So I would like to read or explain what I understand that refinement to be, and then perhaps Senator Davis would amend his motion to reflect the what I'm about to say. There are three parts to this amendment that this amended bill that we're keeping. The first is Part A, the Rural Public Defender Unit. And those are the positions that Senator Davis listed. And this is going to be a mobile rural public defender unit so that they can, MCILS can deploy attorneys around the state where public defenders are needed, in particular the rural counties, but it's not just to benefit one county. And the general fund note on that, beginning in 2022-2023 fiscal year, is $965,897. Part B of the proposed amendment is language only, but it contains language that allows the MCILS to create and maintain standards for the reimbursement of expenses incurred by assigned counsel and contract counsel, including attendance at training events provided by the commission. And that can be done within existing resources, but MCILS has asked that we add that language so that it is clear that they have the authority to do that. And then Part C, as Senator Davis discussed, carries a fiscal note of $275,580 and provides for ongoing funds for MCILS to enter into contracts for online legal research access, things such as Westlaw or Lexis, that provide to MCILS rostered attorneys, up to 300 of them, an annual reimbursement for written legal materials purchased by attorneys. So that is really in more detail the full extent of the amendment. I'm not sure that the original motion captured it all, and I want to make sure that we have it all in as amended. So perhaps Senator Davis would withdraw and remake or modify his amendment to make sure that we've captured everything in that bill.
What's the pleasure of Senator? Oh, sorry, Mark Sear.
Our understanding is that all of that you just described is in the amendment that we were expecting to do for Senator Davis. So I don't think there was anything she said that wasn't in here to my knowledge, but Chris just came in and mentioned that this is what we've got here.
So the motion that
I think we're pretty good.
The motion that Senator Davis made includes the remarks and provisions that.
That's my understanding. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, she just said a lot. I can't, say for sure, but.
No,
Chris
I-
thinks so.
I
Yeah.
can clarify that, Mr. Seer.
Great.
I do know that OFPR has the written amendment from Senator Davis. So what OFPR has is correct. I just wanted to make clear, I don't know whether the OFPR amendment or what is stated here is what carries the day. I was concerned that what was stated in the motion did not fully reflect the written amendment, the amendment that OFPR has. So I just wanted to make sure that the amendment as fully proposed and as is in the possession of OFPR is moved and voted on by this committee.
So I think we're all set on the motion, and it was seconded by Representative Cloutier. Senator Bailey, is there anything you'd like to say on this topic?
I just wanted to make a brief comment, which is I am glad that we're continuing our investment in trying to improve indigent legal services, building on the $20 million we put in last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion before we take a vote? All those in favor of the bill as amended? Okay, 13-0. Sorry, I'm just, okay, so anything else on page 53? You don't see anything? Turn to page 54. Anything, Representative Purse?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to bring your attention to LD 1716, the act to ensure full payment of the state salary supplemental obligation to teachers with national board certification. I'd like to move this ought to pass. There is no need for any amendment. It's good to go.
And is there a second? Second by Representative Cloutier. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Representative Cloutier?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move in ought to pass LD 1732, which is an act to amend the sales tax exemption for nonprofit housing development organizations.
Just as is. Is there a second? Second by Representative Fay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. And I'm going to address LD 1727. This is a Senator Jackson bill with a Senator Jackson amendment. The amendment offsets the general fund appropriation in the bill by transferring $363,500 from the Department of Administrative and Financial Services Medical Use of Marijuana Fund, other special revenue funds account, and $500,000 from the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund within the Maine Municipal Bond Bank to the unappropriated surplus of the general fund no later than June 30th. As amended, the bill still includes general fund appropriation totaling $863,500 per year, beginning in fiscal year 22-23. But the fund, it nets out to the general fund from these other special revenue funds.
Second.
Second by Representative Purse. Any discussion? All those in favor? 12 and opposed? 1. Moving on to page 55. Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In reference to LD 1744, an act to increase funding for the Animal Welfare Fund by increasing certain fees. I believe, I'll move it in, and I believe that we're sharing that 50-50 with the senators.
That's correct. Okay, and that, I just want to make sure, Senator Davis, you're doing the amount that is the engrossed amount, 201,512. Great,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. being shared between the two Senate caucuses. Any discussion? All those in favor? 12. Sorry, all those in favor, put your hand up. Looks like 12 opposed, 1. Anything, I have something on LD 1747, but I will hold off. Representative Cloutier?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move in LD 1745, an act to amend the laws governing the Gambling Control Board. Straight on to pass.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? Representative Millet?
Could we just get a quick explanation of how the laws governing the Gambling Control Board would be changed? I'm not sure I remember the bill.
Sure, I can read from the summary. So this bill allows an employee license issued by the Department of Public Safety Gambling Control Board to be renewed for either a 1-year term or a 3-year term. The renewal fee for a 1-year employee license is $25, and the renewal fee for a 3-year employee license is $50.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Looks like 13-0. Moving down to LD 1747, an act to require screening for cytomegalovirus in certain newborn infants. This happens to be my bill that I've been working on for 8 years. And it has an appropriation of $105,445. This is half a position in the main CDC to work on public education about CMV and how it can be avoided, and some other measures around public health and testing and screening rather. So I will just move it ought to pass.
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Representative Corey?
I intend to vote for this, but as somebody that doesn't know what cytomegalovirus is, and you're the bill sponsor, can you tell us?
I sure can. Cytomegalovirus is a very common virus that is in the community. And when a pregnant person contracts it during pregnancy and passes it on into the fetus, it can do really significant brain damage to the fetus. And one of the results is hearing loss or hearing impairment. And there are others. Now, the good news is if after the baby's born, there is screening and there is an actual treatment for the virus. So if the virus is detected right at birth through the screening process and the treatment is administered, then the chances of the virus affecting the child's brain and development and hearing, it goes way down.
Good bill.
Thanks. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Okay, I think we're done with page 55. We'll move on to page 56. Anything on page 56? Representative Ducharme?
Thank you, Madam Chair. LD 1787, an act to improve the quality and affordability of primary health care provided by federally qualified healthcare centers. I'd move ought to pass as amended. The amendment directs DHHS to provide for rebasing for the FQHCs by June 1st, 2023, and has a fiscal note of $434,647.
All right. So the bill has been moved ought to pass as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Has the effective date changed?
The effective date will be June 1st, 2023.
June 1st, 2023. Any other questions? Representative Peirce.
Could you just repeat the amount? I'm sorry.
434,647.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. I also have a motion on LD 1783. Were you going to do that?
No, it's something.
Okay, let me go ahead.
You go.
All right. 1783 is an act to require health insurance carriers and pharmacy benefit managers to appropriately account for cost sharing amounts paid on behalf of insureds. This has potential future biennium cost increase to the general fund, but it wouldn't happen. Even the potential cost wouldn't happen until at least 24, FY 24, 25, I believe. So I think I'm just going to move ought to pass.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ought to pass LD 1780, an act to allow unorganized territory school staff to receive annualized pay.
Seconded by Representative Martin. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 56? All right, moving on to page 57. Anything on page 57, Representative Millet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to call your attention to LD 1803. This is a bill that we did apply some funding to. It's an act to attract and retain firefighters and emergency medical services personnel through the main length of service award program. I believe we funded it for $1 million in FY 23. We met with the man who's in charge of the program, and he made a case for an additional amount of money on a one-time basis. They're doing their own database and gathering information on the number of personnel, length of service, et cetera. So we would like to move in LD 1803 as amended to increase, well, actually, to replace the 2.5 million with a 500,000 one-time amendment.
Still in FY 22, 23?
Yeah.
All right. Seconded by Representative Ducharme. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 57? All right, moving on to page 58. Mr. Seer.
Yeah, I just want to bring, excuse me, just want to bring to your attention on LD 1805. That's if you do not want to do this, we need to take an affirmative ONTP vote and send it up to the Senate, because this is approval of rules. And the way rules work is if the legislature doesn't act one way or the other, the rule goes into effect. So if you just leave it on the table and it doesn't go back upstairs to be ratified one way or the other, the rule would go into place and these things would occur. So if you want it, fine, that's good, go ahead and do it. But if you don't want it, we still need to take a vote and let me send that. Usually everything that's ONTP, we leave on the table to die. This would be one that I would submit to the Senate and have them approve the ONTP so that the legislative bodies can take it
Let's
into
take an
account.
action,
Right,
yeah.
because otherwise the rule would go into effect if you don't, basically you got to kill it. That's what's going to happen.
Thank you for that flag. Representative Millet?
I think I have been advised by members of the Ag Conservation and Forestry Committee that they are comfortable letting the rulemaking go forward. And therefore, I don't think there is a fiscal impact based on what Mark is saying. should we simply skip over this bill and let it happen?
If you let it go, it's a revenue, it's a negative $7.5 million revenue loss in '23. So it is a hit to the budget. This is a change in the rates related to the milk transfers and so forth. So our understanding is, and if we need to get Michael down here, that's his area, he can speak a little better to it. But my understanding is that if the rule goes into effect, we would have these, we'd be booking these revenue losses to the general fund.
I have not heard anything about this bill from my colleagues. Has anyone else? Representative Millet?
Only what I indicated. I know the price of milk goes up as we approach the turning out to the pasture time because the supply is shrinking. And we actually did approve a change in the revenue forecast for the milk tier program in the budget. So the information I was given, and I would wonder if there's anyone from either Farm Bureau or the committee knows otherwise. I looked to Representative Martin too, because I think this program is assuming that the rulemaking will take care of the need. But I hate to be the one advising. So I thought we were just going to let the rules take effect.
Could we get Mike Russo here and come back to this?
Sure, sounds good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll flag that and come back to it. So moving on from page 57 to page 58. Anything on page 58, I believe?
Turn the page, yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to make a motion to ought to pass as, I'm sorry, make a motion to pass LD 1860. This is an act to promote labor education through the University of Maine system. We are amending this bill. Let me get my notes in front of me. My apologies. I don't have it. There are two sections to this bill. One of them is about a $200,000 appropriation to do part of the bill. We're going to remove that part of the bill and then keep the $500,000 appropriation to start the program up, ongoing money. So we're reducing the allocation to 500,000. I know there are two minutes.
I thought you said 1860. Did you mean 1816?
1816.
1816, thank you.
Changing the allocation from appropriation from 700,000 to 500,000 and removing the section of the bill that talked about a $200,000 appropriation. So this will be ongoing $500,000 to start the program and continue it on.
From the general fund.
From the general fund.
All right. Any questions? Seconded by Senator Bailey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and opposed? 5 opposed. We have Mike Russo here. Thank you for joining us. Could you, I think my first question is, could you tell us what the ACF committee did with this bill?
Hi, everyone. Michael Russo, Office of Fiscal and Program Review. The Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry Committee supported the adoption of the rule change. And this rule deals with the producer margins used to calculate the break-even price in the tier stabilization program, which is part of the dairy stabilization program. So the fiscal note you're seeing is an adjustment to the baseline forecast in the Revenue Forecasting Commission report. The new producer margins are a little bit higher than the current rate. So you have to increase the transfer from the general fund to the Milk Commission to account for the higher prices in the tier program.
Okay, so my next question is, if we do nothing in this committee, what happens?
Because it's a major substantive rule, the rule would go into effect because the legislature failed to act. And then in the next revenue forecast, we'd adjust it up to reflect the new producer margins.
Okay, so I guess I would ask if there's anybody on this committee who feels we should take any, Mark Sear.
I just want to correct one thing. If this passes, we would recognize the revenue loss now, not wait for the revenue forecasting committee. If it passes, it's kind of, it is a little bit different situation, because if you don't pass the bill, but you let it become law, there is a question of how would the revenue recognition, in this case loss, take place, because we don't have a vehicle. If the actual bill wasn't there, we wouldn't have a fiscal note to show it now, but we would reflect it at the next revenue forecasting committee adjustment. So, if you wanted the rule to happen, you can either affirmatively vote for this, or you could just let it go. Ultimately, the impact of doing either of those things is the same. The difference would be, if you don't want the rule to take place, you can't just let it die on the table. So if you want it affirmatively, you could either pass it now and we recognize that loss in the fiscal note process, or you could let it take effect on its own. And then the next revenue revision of the revenue forecasting committee would pick up that same loss. So if you're positive on it, it almost doesn't really matter which way you go. But if you're negative on it, you need to decide that and move that upstairs.
Okay. Is there anybody here who wants to do something different than the policy committee did? No. Do you?
I only want to make sure that the small farmers are not getting adversely impacted. If the policy committee is comfortable, then I'm comfortable. So I'm assuming that we need not take action today.
Okay. So the policy committee, was that vote unanimous, Mike?
I'm sorry, I don't recall. Stop.
Okay. All right. I think that this committee does not have the appetite to do anything different than the policy committee. And I think I heard Mr. Sear say, if we do nothing, then we will book this change in revenue in the upcoming, whatever next revenue forecast. So we'll leave it at that. Is that enough clarity for you?
Perfect.
All right. Anything else on page 57? Thank you, Mike. All right, we're going to move on to page 58. Actually, we did page 58 already. We're going to move on to page 59, and Senator Bailey has a bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move in LD 1831 as amended, and the amendment is essentially going to take out the positions, but we are leaving in the language around training of judges and family law magistrates around domestic violence and child abuse, as well as the language allowing family law magistrates to issue interim orders.
So you're striking the appropriation.
Correct.
All right. Is there a second? Second by Representative Fay. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 59? All right, turning the page to page 60. I'm going to move on LD 1859 ought to pass. This is an act to establish the Maine Emergency Medical Services Community Grant Program. And it does a one-time appropriation of $200,000 into a grant program so that communities that are struggling with emergency medical services can get grants to try to tackle that challenge. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any further discussion? It's a one-time appropriation. All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 60?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move in LD 1868 as amended. So this is my bill. It's an act to restore funding to the state's tobacco prevention and control program. And we actually had a couple of bills this session that sought to do the same thing. So we had this, which is 1868. We also had LD 1423. And so this will now sort of incorporate both of those bills. So the appropriation and allocation will go from $5 million to $7.5 million from the Fund for a Healthy Maine. And we will incorporate language that says, this bill provides ongoing allocations to the Tobacco Prevention and Control Program to restore the level of funding provided for the program to US CDC recommended levels, as long as tobacco tax revenues and available funds in the Fund for a Healthy Maine exceed that amount.
All right. Are there any, well, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any further discussion? Representative Millet?
Just a question of Representative Cloutier or anyone that can answer. Does this stay within the current allocation to the Fund for Healthy Maine?
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 60?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move ought to pass on LD 1875.
All right.
Second.
Moved and ought to pass and seconded by Representative Peirce, moved by Representative Fay. This is a resolve to address PFAS pollution at state-owned solid waste landfills. Any discussion? All those in favor? I need a little more clarity, Representative. Okay. So I have, I think, 12 and opposed. All right. That's 13-0. Anything else on page 60? Okay. And page 61?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move ought to pass as amended on LD 1885. And the amendment would be to fund one additional instead of 6 additional loans in the Maine Veterinary Loan Program. This is a bill that was passed unanimously out of the IDEA committee, and we're just reducing the number of loans that we're funding.
And is there a change in the appropriation?
There is. It is 220,000 down from 920.
And it's a one-time appropriation.
One time.
Okay. Is there a second?
Actually, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's ongoing.
It is ongoing.
Yeah.
Okay. Second by Senator Bailey. Any Representative Millet?
Just a question to Representative Fay. I think folks in my caucus support the program, recognize the need for more veterinarians coming into rural Maine. Does the 220,000 cover 1, 2, or 3 slots, as you know it?
Thank you. Yeah, there's a little bit of a deeper explanation, Representative Millet. So the current program funds 2 veterinarians in the agricultural sector. And so we'll also be increasing the amount of that loan for those two slots. And then we will from $25,000 to $35,000 per year. And then we will be adding one additional slot, which can conceivably go to a practitioner of emergency or critical care veterinary medicine in counties designated in the bill.
As I indicated, we are supportive of it. If we'd had some money, I think we might have added a slot, but I think this is a good start.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? 13-0. And is there anything else on page 61? Representative Fay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let's see, I'm gonna find my notes here. So I'd like to move ought to pass as amended on LD 1891. And the amendment would be that we're gonna fund this at $500,000 using $100,000 of the AG settlement funds and $400,000 of general fund. And that's one time.
All right. Is there a second? Second by Representative Cloutier. Any questions, discussion?
Could we hear those numbers again? I think we had an amendment prepared. It didn't sound like the same numbers. Could you just say that again, please?
I can, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I have $100,000 of the AG settlement funds and $400,000 of general fund.
Yeah, I'm seeing 100,000 from some settlement money from the AG's office. But after it's all amended, I'm looking at an amendment that would move the general fund approach to 50,000. We might need to maybe we need to get Rachel down here to
I think Representative Purse has something to
talk
add.
about. Oh, okay.
Thank you. I think in the course of when we became aware that we were going to be sharing some expenses, we were able to increase our general
Okay, so
fund
it's a different, it's
appropriation to
not the one
this.
we got then.
Correct.
Okay,
And we
okay.
apologize for not maybe, in the flutter of activity, not getting that to you. So there's $400,000 of general fund money going toward that, and then $100,000 of settlement money.
All set, Mr. Seer?
I think so.
Great. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? 13-0. Representative Purse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ought to pass as amended LD 1902, a resolve to establish a pilot program to encourage climate education in Maine public schools. This is a joint effort between the House Democrats and the Senate Democrats, and we will be allocating it in, I'll just describe it. There'll be $200 million for grants. That money $1 million of that will be coming from the general fund. $800,000 of that will be coming from the liquor fund, and $200,000 of that will come from a settlement from the
Mm-hmm.
AG. And then in addition, we will be coming from the general fund, putting in $94,019 for a limited period position, which is the language in the bill. So that's ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Representative Cloutier?
I just wanted to clarify the amount because I thought you said $200 million instead of.
Oh, did I? Wow.
$2 million.
Yeah, let's go. Climate. 2 million. A total of $2 million in grants, and that money comes from the general fund of $1 million, $800,000 from the liquor fund, and $200,000 from the settlement.
And I'll second that.
And we're sharing that.
And we're sharing that.
Okay, so Representative Cloutier seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and opposed? 1, 2, 3. 10 to 3. Anything on page 62? Representative Purse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me get organized here. This is LD 1904, an act to make technical corrections to the Maine Juvenile Code. I move this ought to pass.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Bailey. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 62? Representative Millet?
Thanks, Madam Chair. While it wasn't on my original sheet, I would like to call your attention to LD 1916. This is a proposal to provide or supplement the legal defense fund for the Maine lobster industry. There was a bill this bill is on the table. We would like to suggest that we use some OSR money, 380,000, which is a lobster fee for licensing. This would basically supplement the $3 million that we gave for state defense of the lobster industry against the whale nets and other issues, and in effect allow the department to allocate the 380,000 to a statewide association representing them, as well as a labor union representing those individuals engaged in lobster fishing. And the proposal is to take 380,000 one time out of a OSR account. I have copies. I apologize for not having distributed this before, but I did alert the chairs, and it's an interesting subject, and we've dealt with the 3 million. This would be an OSR supplement to it.
And so when the general fund appropriation is stripped from it,
The
right? That's part of
appropriation
it.
would be stripped.
Yep.
And I hope this markup of the fiscal note made that clear, Mark, but I'm not positive.
And seconded by Representative Martin. And the OSR, Representative Millet,
Yes.
is what?
Just is 380,000
From
comes from license fees charged to the lobster fishermen.
in the main marketing,
Right.
lobster marketing thing. Okay. Moved as amended by Representative Millet, seconded by Representative Martin. I'm just trying to figure out if this is a conversation about this. Oh, thank you.
No worries.
So the transfer is only 380. Got it. All right, any further discussion? Senator Bailey?
I just have a question as a lawyer. What happens if the state's interests are not aligned with this other organization that we're now using state funds for? How does that work?
I would hope there would be a coordinated legal effort. And I think that the intent is that this money would be used to supplement the legal advice for the plaintiffs as well as for the state as a whole. My understanding.
And I understand that as of right now, they are aligned, but they could diverge at some point, right? It happens all the time. So I'm just, is there any provision for that in what you're proposing, if in fact there's a divergence?
Any further discussion? I'm going to wait for Senator Davis. All set, Senator Davis? Huh? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 62? All right, we're going to move on to page 63. I'm going to do LD 1924, but I do need to come back to LD 1919. I got to find that amendment. So in LD 1924, this is an act to expand access to justice in rural Maine through legal education. We are stripping the general fund appropriation. As amended, the bill still requires the University of Maine system to establish a rural practice clinic in Aroostook County as a 3-year pilot project of the existing legal aid clinic at the University of Maine School of Law. Funding for the first 2 years of the pilot project will be provided by a payment of $680,000 to the University of Maine system from the funds received by the Office of the Attorney General for Antitrust Enforcement and Enforcement of the Unfair Trade Practices Act. And I believe that the third year, it's a 3-year pilot program, the third year will be picked up by the University of Maine School of Law. Second by Representative Martin. And I would ask if there are any questions or discussion. All those in favor? 13-0. And I'm just going to take a brief moment so I can locate my the amendment on LD 1919. Excuse me. So we're going to skip over LD 1919 and come back to that. I'm just going to wait for my co-chair to come back. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're gonna come back. I'm just gonna,
We're doing 1990.
I'm just gonna move on to pass on LD 1919.
Second.
And there's second from Representative Peirce. No need for amendment. Any discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Representative Cardone is not here. So 10 and opposed? 2, 10 to 2. Thank you for the chocolate. We did 1924. Is there anything else on page 63? Representative Millet?
Madam Chair.
Who said that?
I actually was there. I just couldn't get my camera back on.
Oh, okay,
So, I would have been a yay vote on that.
thank you so much. Thank you for the chocolate, whoever handed that out. Representative Millet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call your attention to LD 1927, an act to authorize certain off-premises sales of adult use marijuana products. I would like to move it in as proposed at the 245,745 funding starting in 23, FY 23.
So it's, you're just moving on to pass.
Yes.
Seconded by Representative Ducharme. Any discussion? All those in favor? 12 opposed? 12 to 1.
And I also have another one on this page.
Great.
LD 1929.
Mhm.
Sponsored by another good Democrat. And it's an act to provide assistance to areas severely infested with brown-tail moth. And we would like to move it in as amended. And the amendment would be to fund it at $342,908 in FY 23. There are 2 positions. We would like to make them limited period through June of 24. So it would be in as amended with those changes.
So but the dollar amount appropriation stays the same.
Right. Yep.
Okay, is there a second? Second by Representative Cloutier. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Well, we've done all of page 63, so we will move on. Page 64. Senator Bailey, do you have a live mic, Representative Millet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move in LD 1937 to pass as amended. The amendment is transferring from the Liquor Operation Revenue Fund established in Title V, Section 174, the appropriation of $365,750 on or before June 30th, 2023 to cover expected revenue loss from this bill.
And I'll second that. Any discussion? There is litigation pending on this, so this might not happen, but we'll see. And all those in favor? 13-0. You have a live mic. Anything else on page 64? Okay, moving on to page 65. Anything there? Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move in as amended 1968. This is an act to expand access to mental health and crisis care for individuals in jails and individuals experiencing homelessness. This amendment will remove sections B, C, and D in the bill and just maintaining Part A. There are no costs associated with it, so ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Cloutier. So no appropriation.
Correct.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Representative Purse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move in as amended LD 1974. This is an act to establish and fund the Maine Climate Corps program and pursuant to recommendations in the report required by a resolve of 2021, Chapter 25. This is I'm going to move this in as amended and this takes place in the Department of Education. The first section is the Maine Climate Corps program. I'm reducing 5 Maine Climate Corps program leadership positions to 1, which will be $81,310. In the next section, I'm reducing the 20 eligible participants to 4. They come at a cost of $120,000, and that money is coming from settlement funds. And then the main service fellows also in that section provide this. The first one was ongoing. The second one is one time. The next one is one time as well. Provide one-time funds to increase the opportunities for individuals to devote a year of service to communities in the state. And I'll allocate $30,000 from settlement funds to that as well. So I move that ought to pass as amended.
Is there a second? Second by Senator Bailey. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor? Looks like 11 and opposed, 2. Anything else on page 65? Doesn't look it. All right. On page 66, Senator Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I turn your attention to LD 1994, an act to establish the Progressive Treatment Program Fund. And I'd like to move it in as amended. And the amendment reduces the general fund appropriations to the Department of Health and Human Services from $160,000 to $80,000, beginning the fiscal year 2022-23 for the Progressive Treatment Program Fund to reimburse the legal costs incurred by private entities to initiate and maintain progressive treatment programs.
Senator Davis, my understanding is that we were going to move that in as it was, and that your caucus and my caucus was going to share those two, split the cost 80,000 each.
That is fine with me.
Great.
Okay.
So you want to just move
I would move the.
ought to pass?
Yes, ought to pass.
All right,
Yes.
so the motion
At
is
160.
ought to pass LD 1994 with the appropriation of $160,000 per year starting in 2020 FY 23 and shared between the 2 Senate caucuses. Any question? Second from Senator Bailey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 66? Representative Millet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 2, the remain 2 at the very top. First of all, LD 1986, an act to provide property tax relief for permanently and totally disabled veterans, sponsored by Representative Roach. We'd like to move it in at the 22,000 starting in FY 23.
Is there a second? Second by Representative Ducharme. Any questions? All those in favor? 13-0.
And one last one, Madam Chair, LD 1992, continuing our pattern of helping out our fellow Democrats. We would like to move in this bill. We take them where we can get them. This is an act related to the electronic registration and tagging of turkeys, sponsored by.
Now, are those Democratic turkeys or only?
These are those wild turkeys. And sponsored by Representative Landry of Farmington. And we'd like to move it in at 16,000.
Second.
And that's a one-time appropriation, correct?
I would say so.
All right. It's been moved to pass and seconded by Representative Purse. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. I think we're finished with page 66. Anything on page 67? I believe I have I do have an amendment on 1998. Is that something you'd like to move, Representative?
As printed.
Do you want to read the amendment?
The amendment moves the money to 2022 and 23. The money will come from the reserve for tax relief fund for Maine residents to the unappropriated surplus of general fund.
And that's the act to establish a fund for farmers adversely affected by drought conditions.
Right.
So Representative Martin has moved ought to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second by Senator Davis. Any discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Are we finished with page 67? All right, turning to page 68. Representative Peirce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ought to pass as amended LD 2003, an act to implement the recommendations of the commission to increase housing opportunities in Maine by studying zoning and land use restrictions. You may recall that we had done some work in our supplemental budget around some elements of this bill. So I will be amending out, eliminating the ongoing general fund appropriation in the bill of $3 million in fiscal year 22-23, which included the $100,000 to reimburse municipalities. It also eliminates in the bill the provisions related to the Housing Opportunity Program with the Department of Economic and Community Development. We did that within the supplemental. So it retains the rest of the bill and strikes out all of those elements of it. Ought to pass as amended.
Second by Representative Cloutier. Is there any further discussion? Representative Millet?
Question, if I might, I guess, when I was hearing Representative Chairperson say language only.
Language only, right?
Thank you.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Looks like 12 opposed. 1. Anything else on page 68 from anyone? Okay, page 69. Representative Cloutier.
So I would like to move in LD 2030, an act regarding taxation of energy storage facilities and equipment as amended. And the amendment basically converts section 1 of the bill from an exemption to a reimbursement. And the claim for reimbursement may not be submitted prior to July 1 of 2023.
Okay,
I'll second that.
any discussion? All those in, Representative Millet?
To indicate that we are supportive of this as well.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 13-0. Anything else on page 69?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Representative Fay.
I would like to move ought to pass as amended on LD 2018. And the amendment removes all of the appropriations and makes some changes to the language. The language is basically narrowed so that we no longer need an appropriation, so that the scope of the bill has been narrowed.
And then the department will absorb whatever.
And the department is absorbing
Okay,
any costs.
okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Peirce. Any discussion? All those in favor? Representative Corey, up or down? No, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8-5. Anything else on page 69?
Madam Chair, I wanted to think my vote on LD 2003.
Okay. You want to move to reconsider?
Did we vote on 2003?
We did.
We did. Yeah, I'd like to redo my vote on,
You want to move to reconsider?
yes, can we reconsider this vote? I'm not on the, oh, I am on the side. Doesn't really matter. It's a straw vote anyway. But I'd ask to reconsider.
I'll second your
Okay,
motion to
the
reconsider.
motion to reconsider has been moved and seconded on LD 2003. All those in favor of reconsideration? 13-0. And now Representative Hymanson, do you, well, the original motion from Representative Peirce was ought to pass as amended,
Correct.
and it was seconded by Representative Cloutier. So we will take that vote again. All those in favor? 10 in favor and opposed? 3. Okay. We finish with page 69. And Representative Martin has just asked for a caucus, corner caucus. So, sorry, Senator Davis, do you have something else?
If we could, I'd like to return to LD 1787.
LD 1787. What
It's on
page is
page
that?
56.
All right. And do you want to move to reconsider?
Reconsideration, yes.
So Senator Davis would like to move reconsideration on LD 1787.
Second.
Second. All those in favor of reconsideration? Looks like 13-0. And do you have a new motion, Senator Davis?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. If I recall, we moved $435,000 into the bill. The Senate Republican caucus has $1,194,981, and I would like to move that into this bill.
So you'd like to add that to
Add
the
that? Yes.
appropriation?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that-
Looks like Luke has something to.
So, well, I just want to ask, because the way the bill is drafted, the effective date was changed to June 1st, 2023, which amounts to this 435,000, which is 1 month of cost. So essentially, is it that you want the effective date to be made in such a way to use the majority of the money you're suggesting?
Yes.
Okay, so can you say the number again?
$1,194,981.
Okay. And that's not on top of the 435. That's the number you want it to be.
Well, it would be on top of the 435. The House
It's on top
Republicans
of.
Put the 435 in. So yes, it would be on top of it.
Okay.
We have about $1.6 million total.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a second?
Second.
There are 3 seconds.
You spoke like
Representative
that.
Peirce seconded. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor? Okay, 13-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Certainly. Now we'll have a quick corner caucus as requested by Representative Martin. All right, so Maureen, I always like to check with you before I begin to wrap up. We have finished. We did our committee bills and now we've done the table bills.
I can't answer that since you didn't act on all the table bills, but you
Ah,
did
right.
act on all the committee bills. and
Okay.
I assume that bills on the table you didn't act on are purposefully not acted on.
That's correct. You're so diplomatic. Thank you. All right, well, so what will happen Monday is that these bills that are that we have taken action on will be acted upon in the Senate. If they were amended here, they will go from the Senate to the House and back to the Senate for final enactment. If they were not amended here, they will not go back to the House. They will simply be enacted in the Senate and sent to the governor's desk. So are there any questions before we conclude? Representative Peirce.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. I just wanted to acknowledge that we have a few people around our horseshoe that are termed out. And I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone around the horseshoe for the work that we did this session. Representative Corey is termed out. Thank you for joining us around the horseshoe. Representative Hymanson. Representative Martin, although probably will come back because he seems to come back, but it's always a pleasure. And Senator Davis as well. And then my good co-chair, Senator Breen. It's been nothing but a pleasure to work with you this year. I think I speak on behalf of everyone. You do it with clarity and humor and effectiveness, and I really appreciate the work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really very grateful I had this opportunity. You were a great co-chair, a great committee, even Representative Millet. We did okay. But it has been real, hasn't it, Representative Millet? And of course, we want to, I think everybody reiterate our thanks to OFPR and all the work they have been doing and the work they will be doing over the weekend. So thank you one and all. And that concludes our work session for today.